Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. So this is going to be my Walking Dead episode 10 video. So we got a couple really big comic book moments, so I'm going to explain those first and then I'll get into the top 5 moments. Just careful for spoilers if you haven't seen the episode yet. So starting with the new character. The person we met at the end was Aaron. He's directly from the comic books. He's part of the Alexandria Safe Zone storyline. It's his job to scout new recruits for the Safe Zone, to go out and follow them around, see if they're not complete psychos, and then bring them back. So it's a really big deal that they're introducing him this soon. The second big moment was Rick said, "We are the Walking Dead," probably his most famous comic book quote. That was from issue 24 during the Heart's Desire storyline. The context in which he said it was very different, but thematically it did work with what was going on in this episode. In the comic, he had been passed out for a long time, and the group didn't know if he was going to wake up. They were losing faith in him, but eventually he woke up, and it's kind of a reaffirmation of his desire to survive. He said, "We are the Walking Dead." The way he said it in this episode was a lot less climactic, and it came before that big storm smash cut at the end with the walkers trying to pound their way into the barn. But you get the idea, it's just a reaffirmation of their will to live. Okay, so getting into top 5 moments, here we go. Number 5, everyone is losing the will to live slowly. It's kind of like everyone wants to just lay down in the road and die. The way they're just kind of shuffling down the road makes them look like walkers themselves. Maggie, Sasha, and Daryl look like they're getting ready to go off the deep end. It takes them most of the episode, but eventually they open up, they start talking. If it seemed a little weird because it was so quiet, it's just that they want you to fill the episode with your own emotions. They want you to feel what these characters are feeling. So by making it that quiet, it forces your own brain to conjure up whatever you think that they're feeling, and it ends up being that much more emotional. I'm always interested to see how different each of the Walking Dead episodes are cut, the way that they edit each of them. Like last week we had that weird intro, this week we started with a close-up of Maggie's eyes. I do have to give them props for trying so hard to do different things. You guys can let me know whether you thought all this silence was effective. Did it put you into their mind space? Daryl, Maggie, and Sasha. Moving on to number 4, the Bridge Massacre. This is the first moment that shocks them out of the funk. Oh god, we gotta deal with this now. It's one of the few times in the episode when there actually is a music cue, and you go from dead silence, a lot of dead silence, to this crazy anxiety-inducing Hans Zimmer tune. I feel like because the episode was so silent, they use music cues like this to drive all the tension. Even when we got the storm, it's like the music is doing most of the work. Is anyone having fun watching Sasha go a little bit crazy? I mean, everyone's a little bit crazy right now, but she is going hardcore. Even Michonne tells her to chill out. Later in the episode, Daryl and Maggie are like, she's tough, just like Tyrese was. But you really see in moments like this when Sasha starts to go a little nuts, she really is cut from the same cloth as Tyrese. It's like when Tyrese was talking about himself, the time he walked into the herd of walkers with the knife, like he wanted them to just overwhelm him. Maggie had kind of that same moment too, where that walker almost crawled on top of her before she killed it. I'm going to think of that as walker-assisted suicide. Speaking of which, you remember when Daryl went out into the woods and he saw that walker sitting up against the tree that looked like it might have committed suicide, and then he sat down with a cigarette later in the episode in that same pose? Thankfully, they pulled him back from that. I mean, after he put the cigarette out on his hand, he started to cry. He started to finally process the emotions, and then cue the giant rainstorm, as if the world is crying with him. Moving on to number 3, biblical rainstorm comes to wash their problems away. Did anyone else pick up on a subtle religious theme going through the episode? Almost like a Noah's Ark situation. Since Herschel's been gone, they haven't gotten too heavy with religion, but Gabriel's still there, and at least until halfway through the episode, when he takes his frock off, they do invoke some literal religious interpretations. Maggie's like, I know exactly what that is. My father was very religious. Just the idea of a suit made of hair sounds so creepy. I actually liked the scene in the barn more than I liked the bridge massacre. Just because Carl had put baby Judith down, it looked like they weren't going to survive. It looked like the walkers were going to overpower them. And then it just cuts to the next morning and you have no idea what happened until it cuts over to Rick with baby Judith in his arms. I like that they didn't make us wait to find out. Did anybody else just freak out a little bit when Carl put baby Judith down by herself? I was like, ooh, that is how babies get stolen right there. The title of the episode was Them, so I kept waiting for a them to show up, which I think became literal once Aaron showed up. The them representing the Alexandria Safe Zone people. Moving on to number 2, We Are the Walking Dead. Like I said, awesome comic book moment that they finally paid off. In the episode though, I love Rick's story about his grandpa, refusing to tell him about killing people, but totally spilling the beans on the dark story about how he woke up every day thinking he was already dead. The argument that he gets into with Michonne is that this apocalypse that they're living in, Michonne thinks this isn't real life. This is just a bad dream that's going to go away eventually. Rick and a couple of the others disagree. They say, this is reality. We have to learn to deal with it. We have to learn to grow up. Let me know if you agree. Do you think that Carl, as a child who's still growing up, is better suited to adapt to life in the apocalypse than the adults? It's like that Star Wars thing. You're too old to begin the Jedi training. It's too hard for you to unlearn what you've already learned. I guess if you took the idea to its logical conclusion, it's really baby Judith that's the one that's best suited to survive. Oh, and one more fun fact about the We Are the Walking Dead line in the comics. It featured this really tender Carol-Rick kiss, which I think is kind of funny, because we had that nice moment with Carol patting Daryl on the head earlier in the episode. Based on how fried Daryl is right now, I would say that's about as close as he's going to get with anyone this season. And my number one moment, meet Aaron. It was so funny how creepy he walked into frame. Hello, stranger danger. Like he was literally calling himself out as creepy. And then the music box turns on. It was such a perfect crazy ending to a crazy episode. So like I said, he is the beginning of the Alexandria Safe Zone storyline. It doesn't mean they're going to get there in the next episode. They said that they're about 60 miles out. I assume that's from Washington, D.C. I have no idea how close they're going to keep it to the comic books. Whenever we do get there, we can just compare with the comic books and see what they've cut out, what they've changed. But Aaron's job is just to make sure that they're not complete psychos before he brings them back to the safe zone. I'll be really interested to see if they go to the safe zone like right away and we spend a bunch of episodes there, it completely changes my ideas about the season. Normally you'd think they'd save a big payoff moment like that for the end of the season. So he might just stay with them for a while to get a sense for who they are, but it seems like he kind of already does. Let me know though, what was your favorite moment from the episode, and do you think that they're going to be going to the Alexandria Safe Zone in the next episode, or do you think they're going to wait a couple more weeks? It seems like just based on the episode descriptions for the next couple of episodes, they're not going to be going there right away. But all in all, a very weird but good episode. I think it was weird in a good way. It just, sometimes it can be disorienting when the style changes from episode to episode so quickly. That's what you call Emmy bait right there. Usually you see shows try really cinematic techniques like this whenever they're trying to win awards. And I think that is one of AMC's big goals. They want Walking Dead to win awards. Not only is it the most popular show in the world, they want it to be the most critically successful show in the world too, whether or not that actually ends up happening. As much as they shoot the show in a very rural setting, like usually they're walking around the woods somewhere, they really try to inject a lot of creativity and artistry into it. So I do give them high fives for that. It doesn't always work. I mean, it was a little bit weird with just how quiet it got, but I think it worked with the story they were trying to tell in this episode. The survivors are slowly turning into walkers themselves. They're just slowly giving up the will to live until an act of God comes and shakes them out of their funk. I'm interested to see if that restored Gabriel's faith. It seems like he kind of lost it in the episode when he burned his frock. So really, the biggest thing to get excited about is this new Aaron character and to see how he changes the dynamic, especially in the next couple of episodes. It seems like we're going to spend some time with him before we get to the Alexandria Safe Zone. So be sure to subscribe to get next week's video. I know there's the Oscars, but they're still airing Walking Dead, so I'm totally going to do Walking Dead. Don't forget, there's a new round of the giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this video. So I'll announce the winner whenever I post my Q&A video tomorrow. While you guys wait for that, you can click here for last week's episode of The Walking Dead, and you can click here for my latest Game of Thrones Season 5 video. Thank you so much for watching, so let's all high five. We are The Walking Dead.